Live from Los Angeles to stations up and down the West Coast and nationwide on iHeart Radio. This is KLEAN Radio, and it starts right now.
Thank you, Rand DeWitt. Hi, everybody. I'm Pat O'Brien. Here we are again on a Sunday night. March 8th already. It's unbelievable. Andrew, I was thinking about milestones, and just everything, you too, everything just goes fast.
Well, I think it's just part of getting old. So.
No, my son, we'll ask Jack. By the way, Jack Osbourne's here tonight, who I've known forever, and in various forms, and he'll be on a little bit. And Dana Perry, who just won an Oscar, is on too. But milestones are weird, and you start looking at it, and I bring this up because the longest war in the history of the world has been the United States of America versus the drugs, the war on drugs, and we're losing. It's the biggest upset ever. And now we have this new drug czar. And by the way, let me just tell you how to find us tonight if you want to call in. Our phone number is 800-222-5222, 800-222-5222. A lot of twos. And we're on stations all up and down the West Coast and across the country on KLEANradio.com and Facebook.com/KLEAN Radio. And at Twitter, we're at KLEAN Radio. So there we are. We're just about everywhere. And I want to thank Fox 11 and my old friend Sid Rosenberg for putting us on this week.
That was a great little segment there. And I shouldn't say little. It was like the whole segment they gave you.
Drawing attention to what we do here, not to me. I've had enough attention. Too much. But I want to thank Sid and Steve Edwards, who were great for that. So back to the war on drugs. And Andrew and I were talking about this because we have this new drug czar that the White House appointed. His name is Michael Botticelli. And he's sober. He's been through it himself. But now he says we want to change the conversation, Andrew, about how we label. I hate the word alcoholic. I really do. Mm-hmm. And I'm not real happy with addict. But he wants to change that whole conversation, which is what we try to do, is to end the stigma.
Yeah, and I think probably his intentions are good. I think he falls sort of short in that instead of changing the conversations, basically he just wants to change the words so that they seem less negative and have negative consequences.
So it's old news to you.
Yeah, I mean, he's not really changing the actual conversation. He's just changing the words so it seems more positive, It's like nothing about, here's a couple examples, right? He's got addict to person with a substance use disorder. That sounds like something the French would do, right? Take one simple word and turn it into like 9,
right.
Like the same thing. Here's another one, alcoholic person with an alcohol use disorder.
Well, we're not making fun of it.
But it's kind of crazy. It's like this typical government, right? Like MIA and stuff in Vietnam, they changed everything to words that didn't mean as much. And, the government's pretty good at that too, I think.
And the ending was still the same.
Yeah, it's still the same ending.
Yeah. But we like to change the stigma here, and that's why we have a 24-hour hotline, which we'll get to in a minute. And you can always call it at 888-601-6040. Let's bring on our first guest tonight. She... I think this is our first Oscar winner that's on tonight. And she did a short that was ridiculously great called Crisis Hotline Veterans Press 1. If you watch this and didn't cry, you're not human. And Dana Perry, who got that Oscar, joins us now. Hello, Dana. It's Pat. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm good, and Andrew's here as well.
Hey, Dana. How are you doing?
So I loved it that you won, and I love it. We love it here at KLEAN when things that have a message come to the forefront and win. And yours is all about, I spend a lot of time at the Veterans Hospital, not just on Memorial Day or Veterans Day, and we just kind of wash over veterans, don't we, sometimes?
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think we're afraid of approaching them. They're human, just like us, and I think they come back and feel pretty isolated and have a hard time reintegrating into their communities.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I find most disturbing is how much money we spend on training people to go to war and equipment we spend for them to use. And you give some guy $1 billion tank, and then all of a sudden you just send him home, and that's about it.
That's about it.
Yeah, it's really not enough. And I found your documentary actually absolutely fascinating. I thought it was really good. And one of the reasons I really enjoyed it personally was I was one of the I was a counselor in Tompkins County Community Suicide Prevention Center, which was one of the first ones in the country, if not the first, I think. And, I did that. That was my first thing I ever did in social services when I was just out of high school.
Wow.
So, so I got to be a trained, suicide prevention counselor. Yeah. And it was really interesting to see how you brought that to life with narratives. It was great.
Thank you.
Dana Perry is our guest, and what is the most? First of all, these people that answer these phones are great. I mean,
oh my God, they're heroes.
They're so engaged in what they do. It just made me cry. I mean, I feel like I do a lot of service. God, I felt like I was doing nothing after watching this. What's the number one thing that they have to do? I know they talk a lot of people out of committing suicide on the spot, but what's the number one goal for that hotline?
Well, I think there are several. I think the number one thing that they have to do is ask that veteran or that veteran's relative if they are having any thoughts of hurting themselves or others. That's the first question, pretty much, other than thank you for your service, which they often open with or close with, which I really like a lot. The immediate job is to prevent that veteran from hurting himself or herself. And whether that's by invoking loved ones or directing them to counseling, they have many different ways of trying to interrupt the impulse. Now, when I first went in, I thought it was going to be dial a therapist. You're going to call up and talk about your problems
right.
and that. It wasn't the case at all. Really what they're doing is interrupting that moment. First of all, let's give it up for anyone brave enough to make that call, because it takes some guts and it takes some...
It's a heavy phone. That's a heavy phone.
That's a very heavy phone.
Yeah, I mean, we know, for example, that most people that have a problem generally takes about 7 years before they'll even call for help. So the ability to answer a phone...
Wow, I didn't even know that.
So the ability to answer a phone after somebody's maybe waited that long prior to getting help is a big deal. And I think that, what you were talking about, how realizing that this is such a complicated problem, suicide, and all the underlying issues that go with it, from PTSD to depression to anxiety. And so when you think about, when a person calls on the phone, what they need the most is, one, to make sure that they're okay and check in, but also be able to have someone just listen to their problem and them not feel judged, and then send them on to the next level of care.
Exactly.
And there's multiple levels of care in this. The idea that somehow we're just going to have a phone line only and that's going to solve this problem is not enough. The country really needs to get together.
That's not the intention
right.
at all. I mean, the phone is really just a bridge to getting that help. I mean,
it's a crucial part. No, it's a crucial part of the process. That's what I'm saying. But it's just the beginning. We have to really concentrate on outpatient programs and inpatient, and really looking at reforming our mental health system.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, and on that topic, Dana Perry's our guest. Nobody wants to have their child die, and unfortunately or sadly, yours committed suicide. And also, nobody wants to be reminded about it every day. But I think that this conversation now, we're hoping here that, when someone dies from something awful, we maybe spend a day on it, the news cycle. We don't, but the news cycle does. When Robin Williams died, 44,000 people died of depression last day. It was a one-day story.
Right.
I think this keeps, how much of the narrative will continue now with the movie? And Boy Interrupted was great. And by the way, your movie's on HBO Go, by the way, on demand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you know that?
The other thing I just learned is that they will be airing it on CNN on March 31st at 9 p.m. and midnight.
Great.
That's really good.
We'll promote that. People need to see this. But the conversation to continue. How do we keep it going, Dana? Because they don't give out Oscars every day for these kinds of things.
Well,
you got your moment in the spotlight.
Two parts to it. We did the film about the hotline, and this veterans issue is a giant issue. As we said, we spend all this money on arming them. We spend very little on taking care of them when they come home. The other issue is suicide itself and the stigma around it and our fear of talking about it. I'll give you an example. As I was doing my research for the veterans film, the party line on therapy was to not mention to the patient, the veteran, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Is suicide on your mind? With the idea that somehow, if you brought it up, the therapist brought it up, it would give them the idea.
A trigger, yeah.
That's not how it works. So they finally realized that and started a campaign called Ask the Question, which is to say, in a therapy session with a veteran, ask if that person is, thinking of hurting himself or others, or has any means in mind, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, someone's not going to become suicidal because the therapist mentioned it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think what I've seen in the field is a lot with veterans, especially, is the fear of bringing up suicide because it's seen as such a weakness within that community.
Absolutely,
right?
that's a really big part of the problem.
So it's almost like
military culture does not.
Yeah, they don't tolerate it. They see it as weakness and your inability to fight, and your inability to take care of those that you're fighting with.
I think too that the biggest thing, I've had a suicide in my close family, and it's like a wrecking ball hitting you in the gut.
Sure
and because I've had 5 or 6 friends, believe it or not. Well, I'm in the recovery community, so I have had a lot of friends who have committed suicide. And I think the biggest question that people have, and I'm wondering if you still have it, is why. I mean, it's...
Well, we can't ask them, can we? I mean, that is the question, indeed. And, I think what people who have not experienced depression or bipolar illness or PTSD or traumatic brain injury, any of these things, can't understand is how desperately, lost these people are. That they actually think that the only way to get relief is to end their life. What they don't realize is that they're also potentially ending the happiness or the lives, the peace of others.
Everybody around them. Robin Williams. Robin used to say to me, I wake up in the morning and my first thought is jump. And I never said why.
Well, I don't know if why is really the right question at first. The question at first really is, are you really going to kill yourself? And there's such a fine line between not killing yourself and killing yourself. Like one of the stories I like to tell, when I was working in acute care psych, I had this patient who had tried to kill herself unsuccessfully. And I asked her that question, why, when she came in and when I was a therapist, just starting out. And she said, because I broke my shoelace. And I was like, what? That was it. And of course, that wasn't it. What I found out was there was a whole series of problems and anxieties and frustrations and things that had caused trauma and depression in her life. And it was at that moment when her shoelace broke that she just couldn't handle it anymore. That was just, it just wasn't worth it to go on. At least that's what she thought in her head. And people get into a situation where they're right on that line. They're either not going to kill themselves or kill themselves. And slipping over that edge is very easy. So when somebody says something that's even sounds like blasé or in passing about suicide or killing themselves, it's important to say, hey, you want to talk about it? I'm willing to listen.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of times, my son was a teenager when he took his life, and a lot of times, people would tell me, oh, he's just being a teenager, acting up, he's looking for attention, and I would say, no, you don't understand. He's bipolar. This is, these are extreme mood swings. He, gets into a catatonic state where he cannot be reached, and he's, like a different person. It's like a complete transformation. It is a fine line, and I think back to the responders, what they do really well is tip the line to life.
Absolutely.
Again, if somebody was brave enough to pick up that phone and have that conversation, they are thinking about it. They might have a weapon in their hand, and they might have pill bottle open.
And the documentary does.
And they
do. You hear them talk. You put the weapon down. The documentary is called Crisis Hotline Veterans Press 1, HBO Go on demand. Please watch this. CNN's going to have it. When is it, Dana, on CNN?
March 31st.
On March 31st, a few days from now. So make sure you see it. Congratulations. It's odd to say congratulations, but congratulations on bringing an awful topic to the forefront, okay?
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There
Thank
she
you
is,
so much.
Dana
Okay.
Perry, Oscar
Bye-bye.
winner, Dana Perry. And nothing worse than having one of your kids die. I want to talk to Mike in Santa Monica, and then we'll get to Jack Osbourne. Mike, are you a veteran?
Yes, I'm a veteran from Vietnam, but I've been very fortunate to be able to. I guess when I came back, my mom just said, I started talking about what was happening, and she said, "Oh, just look straight ahead. You're going to go back to college and so forth." And as the years have all passed, and I got much more involved in listening to the news and reading papers and so forth, and it just seems like that there's a root cause that nobody really talks about in regards to if you didn't like what I did while I was there, it's what I did there. If you, for whatever reason, you don't even know what I did over there, good or bad or indifferent, and yet you make a judgment, and not you, but
I understand.
people back here, and make a judgment about what I did there, and then the help really needs to be more support for the soldier that goes and fights, rather than fights for peace.
Mike, I think you're absolutely right. And we saw, Vietnam was such an example of the government trying to always, they had a draft. It was a horrible situation. The war was not a popular war with most people towards the end. And yet it was so wrapped up with so many political interests that unfortunately the veterans got vilified. And
got blamed.
Yeah, and even the people that were for peace saw people that were not willing to take the risk to go to jail and just went on and served their country. They saw that as negative towards the peace movement. So I think we had a lot of ideologies that were mixed up there, and hopefully we're getting to a point where we have a better understanding of veterans, why people serve for our country, and also we have a better grasp politically of what we should and shouldn't protect.
Yeah, I mean, it was a war that was never explained, and that was part of the problem. Mike, thank you for your service, and welcome back to Clean Radio. I am Pat O'Brien. By the way, speaking of hotlines, ours is 24/7, and the number is 888-601-6040. We deal, Andrew, with pretty much everything, right?
That's true. Anything from addiction to mental health, or even if you're just feeling bad, call up. We have trained counselors online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I don't know how to make a segue, but I'm going to. Jack Osbourne's here.
Hello.
Hi, Jack.
Hi, Jack.
Jack and I go back a long way. I've got a relationship with almost, I see your dad. I see Ozzy almost every day, and I see you around. I used to go to your house and go to meetings, actually. And,
Yep.
And your mom has had my back many times on television, and I'm so proud of what Kelly did by quitting over a personal feeling about something last week. And you have been awarded, given awards for addiction and for MS and everything, and I'm really proud of you too.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
It's cool.
Thank you, Pat.
Let's talk about MS first, because I don't think a lot of people know this part of your story.
Sure.
That you have multiple sclerosis. There's no way of knowing how many people have it because it's not reported a lot. It's hard to diagnose. I think they say maybe 2.5, 3 million people have it, but probably
like that.
more. But what is MS?
So MS, at its core, it actually it's funny. It at its core, some people refer to it as traumatic brain injury. It's inflammation of nerves in your brain and spine. It's an autoimmune disease, and your body just decides to go, you know what, I don't like my nerves. I'm going to attack it and cause inflammation, and then they scar over, and your nerve endings stop kind of firing efficiently. It's kind of like, sticking a fork in a cable. It's going to eventually kind of wear it out.
Shorts it,
wears it out. So, I mean, depending on how severe your kind of flare-ups can be, it can affect a whole range of things, from taste to vision to the way your motor skills, both hands, feet, everywhere. Bladder issues, bowel issues.
Sure.
There's a whole gambit. If you look at symptoms of it, you're like, how are all those related?
Right.
well, it's nerve wrappings, right? I mean, there's some weird.
Your whole nervous system's connected. So once you start down that process, you don't know where it's going to go. So that's part of the issue. So you have to be aware of a lot of different things all the time.
Yep.
And there's probably some paranoia where you're like, things that we don't notice because we're not looking for them. You probably fixate on them. You're like, oh no.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. I developed Bell's palsy over Christmas.
Oh.
And the whole right side of my face dropped. And
Merry Christmas.
yeah, right. And I went to the neurologist, and he's like, yeah, it's not related to MS, but it's the inflammation of the facial nerve. And I'm like, well, how? It's because it was in my brain or my spine.
Right.
That wasn't the root of the inflammation. But it's weird. Everyone I know who has MS has had Bell's palsy, but they still say there's no direct correlation.
And there's no way you can catch it. There's no cure for it.
Nope.
There's no real genetic link for it, I don't think.
The one genetic. Sorry, there we go. The one genetic link is in all the research, they find that family that have lineage from Northern Europe tend to be affected with multiple sclerosis the most.
Mm-hmm.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Tell us about your website. You don't know jack about MS? Or
You Don't Know Jack About MS is a partnership with Teva Neuroscience.
Sure.
and we decided to create kind of an awareness page website. We put up tons of content, video, do videos, little webisodes and stuff. And it's all, the main focus is about kind of awareness and, understanding of what MS is, because there's just much like addiction, there's a huge stigma attached to multiple sclerosis and what it actually is and versus what it isn't.
Yeah, well, nobody really, Andrew, do you find this? First of all, if you're out there and you have some sort of symptom, never Google it.
Yeah.
Because they'll tell you you're going to die in 4 years anyway.
Yeah, very true.
But this is why we love you, because this is information, right? This is one of those strange, like Parkinson's or these other diseases have no cure, no rhyme or reason.
Yeah,
really.
this is a neurological disorder, but we've had, multiple diseases that have been around for a long time, and, we're right now starting to look at genes and gene therapy, and there's all these new possibilities. But like most diseases, we don't really understand where they come from. We're still trying to figure a lot of that out. People think that medicine is this advanced science.
No.
Parts of it is and are, but there's a lot that we still have to learn, and that's why I get so horrified when they stop dropping funding for key research.
Yeah.
Especially Ross research, which isn't really, headline producing research, but it's the critical components that have to be assembled at a micro level before somebody can then, put all those together to actually get real answers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the government's really shutting down a lot of research, and it's a real shame because there's still so much work to be done.
Yeah.
It's You Don't Know Jack About MS. It's a long one word. You Don't Know Jack About MS. As my former partner, Nancy O'Dell, would say, how'd you come up with the You Don't Know Jack? Well, his name is Jack Osbourne. You Don't Know Jack About MS.com. What kind of response have you had?
Really positive. There was I think people were really unsure about, like, whoa, what is this website going to be? What is it? What is it going to have on it? And the response has been pretty awesome. I get a lot of people reaching out to me through social media, asking me questions, asking me about, what I do, what's my health routine, what kind of treatment do I do, the whole thing. It is a very kind of community-based kind of disease.
Yeah.
There's support groups, there's everything. There are some parallels, in recovery with the MS community.
Have you had a lot of people accuse your MS directly to your drug addiction?
Very early on, just people who have no idea. They're
right.
like, if you weren't such a drug addict, you wouldn't have got MS. It's like, well, thank you for your groundbreaking insight.
Medical.
Yeah, thank you.
Here's what's interesting, and we're going to talk about addiction when we come back. But here's what's interesting, is I've looked at your website, obviously, and then went around and looked at the other ones, and yours ironically has more information that's understandable on it.
That was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up, because my biggest thing is trying to explain this to someone. It can get you can get lost in the jargon, and if you don't know anatomy and all that kind of the inner workings of the nervous system, you're like, wait, what is myelin? How I don't get that, and all this stuff. So I really wanted to make it as simple and as digestible as possible.
Not unlike Michael J. Fox, my friend who had started the Michael J. Fox Foundation. His website, what he does is more explainable than anything the government has put out. So anyway, the website is called, not anyway, but I don't know why I say anyway, but I did say anyway. The website is called You Don't Know Jack About MS. Jack Osbourne is our guest. We'll get into a whole bunch of stuff when we come back here on KLEAN Radio. I'm Pat, that's Andrew, that's Jack, and Buddy's coming up.
Are you addicted to drugs or alcohol, but unable to commit to an inpatient rehab stay? Introducing KLEAN Treatment Center's Outpatient Treatment. This drug and alcohol treatment program is designed specifically for the working professional. Don't let your commitments of running a business, taking care of a child, or maintaining your college classes get in the way of your recovery from addiction. With daytime, evening, or individualized programs, KLEAN's Outpatient Treatment will fit your life. Call now for a free screening. Professional guidance is standing by.
Hi, everybody. I'm Pat O'Brien. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for joining the KLEAN Radio channel. Be sure to subscribe and get weekly episodes and clips. And comment, like or dislike, whatever. Be nice. We respond to everything.
This is KLEAN Radio.
By the way, speaking of Los Angeles, I was in East L.A. yesterday. Deep East L.A. Mm-hmm. And there are cherry blossoms out there.
Yeah.
They're not. It's the only place you can see them in the country. It's so cold everywhere.
Spring is here.
East LA. Buddy Totten's here. Buddy, what do you got for us from the internet?
How you doing? Okay, so this is what's trending on KLEAN Radio social media. You can find us on KLEAN Radio /Facebook and at Twitter, KLEAN Radio. We got some pretty heavy questions tonight. First up is Jackie. Jackie says, I was sober for 10 years when I suffered severe injury from a car accident. I'm in pain all the time, and I'm prescribed morphine, which I take daily. I can't tell whether I'm taking opiates for physical pain, emotional pain, or both. I don't feel sober, so I don't go to meetings. I miss my friends. I feel embarrassed and ashamed. What should I do?
Well, first of all, I'm going to have Andrew answer this because I'm not a doctor and I'm not a specialist in addiction, but it sounds like you should never be prescribed morphine for a long period of time, right, Andrew? Shouldn't it be?
Well, that's a tough one because there's a law in California, I don't know which state this is from, but there's some states that have specific laws that you actually can't deny people pain medication.
But morphine?
Yeah, even morphine, yeah, any opiate. So doctors get in a position sometimes where they have to judge whether or not a person really does suffer from chronic pain and needs medication, or whether or not, and then they're legally bound to prescribe it if they have it as a relief. And then there's a position, of course, where you can recognize that there's addiction with opiates. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is that the largest amount of addiction that's beginning now is not really on alcohol anymore, is coming out of prescription drugs. And we're seeing this more and more. And we're seeing it with older and older people, too.
And a lot of women.
A lot of women. You know, it's the number one cause of, I think, overdoses is opiates for women. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. I think as a society in America, we have this such adverse reaction to pain. Yep. You know, you in any kind of pain, emotional, physical, mental, we must numb it. We must get rid of it. And so pain is natural. And I'm not saying everyone should just sit there and rolling around in agony, but it's like, that's your body letting you know something's wrong. Chill out, you know, put your feet up, relax. It will go away. Pain eventually subsides. And I think, we just numb ourselves constantly. We never really let ourselves heal.
Yeah, and almost a
there
definition.
There are times, though, and obviously I own drug rehab, but there are times that opiates are great drugs. I mean,
if you've had like a amputation.
Major injury, and that's and also I think towards death. I don't think we actually use pain medications enough in the last 6 months of life. There's a tendency for doctors to feel that they just keep people at a minimal level and not, a level where they're really, really comfortable.
Yeah.
And one of the problems with that is also that there's been very poor tracking system on the prescribing of these drugs until recently. In a few states now, we're tracking them much better. So you don't end up with somebody dying and then tons of, oxycodone or other opiates lying around the house, and then the kids pick them up or the neighbor comes over and takes them, which is how a lot of the drugs are getting on the street to begin with.
Yeah.
So.
It's the greatest game ever. Go to somebody's house and look in their parents' medicine cabinet. What else you got?
All right. So
I guess that was Pat's modus operandi.
I'm guilty of that one, too.
I don't think it's a good game. I just know that's what happened.
I was king of the medicine cabinet in high school.
Yeah.
All right. So, I'm guilty of that one. Thomas says, my son is 23 years old and completed a 60-day stay at a treatment center for heroin addiction. He's been out for a month and continues to smoke pot and go out with his friends drinking frequently. Every time I confront him, he says at least he's not shooting heroin. I'm an adult. Stop trying to control me. I'm afraid he's going to go back to heroin. How do I deal with this?
Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Spanswick.
Oh, my goodness. I'm getting all the questions tonight. Okay, so two things. One is that, as I always say on this show, there's use, abuse, and addiction. Yeah. So basically, by the time someone's using heroin, I don't care what they say, they're beyond just abuse. They're actually at the point on some level of being at least suicidal, because you don't go to that level of drug use recreationally. It's just not a recreational drug. At least it shouldn't be.
I actually had a roommate who was and I know addicts. This guy legitimately was a recreational heroin user. Wow. 2-3 times a year. He would literally go.
But what's the risk?
I mean, well, yeah.
Risk reward. It's not, it's not a rational risk
to
take.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we were always like, dude, you're insane. He's like, I just like it sometimes.
Yeah,
let
me get to the point of the question, though, which is that, is it okay to use alcohol and marijuana? The best answer is no. Don't, because you've already been in a place where your brain is set up for addiction from a much more potent drug. Then there's the other reality that sometimes people age out of some of these things, but more importantly, I'd be looking at what are the underlying problems or anxieties or issues that are bringing on that person wants to still use. And that's where a treatment center comes in handy, or talking to a counselor, or really finding out what's going on and where a professional helpful. And not just for the kid, I would say for the dad or the parent that's dealing with that, so they know appropriately how to respond and not be destructive but constructive, and coming up with ideas to get them into treatment and get help.
And let them navigate. Thank you, buddy. Our number is 888-601-6040. That's 24/7. Do you even remember why you started using drugs? Or
I think it was initially it was to have fun.
Yeah,
that's how I thought you had fun, is to get high and get drunk. But
kind of a dumb question, actually. I mean, but you just.
But I think there was a huge level of anxiety that allowed me to think that was the only way. There was I don't feel comfortable. I need to be like an adult, because I was always like the kid around adults.
Right.
And I saw adults drinking, doing drugs, and I'm like,
oh, you're Ozzy Osbourne's kid.
Well, that too. I mean, it definitely.
I think you might have seen me over there.
That definitely, opened some doors to some, rooms that probably kids shouldn't have been in at times.
Right.
You used to be like, are you still involved in the music business? Because for a while there, you had like your own label, right?
Yeah, no, I was working for Epic Records for a few years, but it's been a very, very long time.
Did you decide to move out of that because of drugs and alcohol?
No, I started work. When we did the show, I started focusing a lot more on television and started hosting shows, and did a bunch of work in England, and then a couple of years back I started a production company, and so I've been producing TV shows. It's kind of like working in the music industry. There's it's a little bit more immersive medium.
yeah, more people involved.
bit of visualization to go with the sound.
That's right.
Next hour, Spotify.
Yeah, right.
On the industry. The whole reality show, and that's where I met you, because I spent a lot of time over at that house when you guys were literally the biggest thing in the country. What did that contribute? What did that spotlight contribute to?
I think it kind of sped up what I have come to realize was going to happen anyway. I think I have an addictive personality, and like going back from when I was a kid, like I was obsessed with fire. I would light everything on fire, total pyromaniac, and it's even in my kind of adult sober life, I still grab onto things obsessively and like addictively. And for me, in that moment when I was 16 years old, and we kind of stumbled into doing this TV show that became massive. I would walk through the streets of like downtown Manhattan, and people would drag me into bars when I was 16 years old and like buy me drinks. It was like, here you go, and like, okay, this is fun. And
welcome to celebrity.
Yeah, exactly. And it was at a time like right before like the TMZs were around, and when it was just photographers. There was no video cameras.
I missed all that too, by the way.
And so it was like you could get away with so much more. And like now you look at I look at all these kind of like younger kids who are getting busted like smoking pot and like whatever, all on video camera. I'm like, wow, that sucks. There was no cell phone cameras when I was getting crazy at the Playboy Mansion.
Thank God.
Right? That would have, yeah.
But Jack Osbourne's our guest, and I'm so proud of your father. I mean, I see him almost every day, and he's just doing great.
He is. He really is.
And he's Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, he's just going to live a long, long, long time.
Yes, I
think everybody thought they'd outlive him, but I don't think so anymore.
Nope.
And I'm proud of Kelly. What do you? I know you used to have meetings or groups in your house, and I've been to a couple of them. The young people movement against addiction or to get into recovery has really, really grown, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I attribute that massively to the fact that I was able to kind of really grasp sobriety at such a young age. I fell in with a group of teenagers. We were all the same age. We all had very different backgrounds, but I just kind of fell into that, that wolf pack, and that was everything. We lived and breathed it, and meetings 6 nights a week, and we had a lot of fun and go to conventions and just learn to really enjoy ourselves. As teenagers, and it was great.
Yeah, and I see it a lot over at the KLEAN centers. I was over there last week and talked to a couple of really, really young people.
Yeah, it's shocking. Yeah. It's shocking how much it's skewed to a lower demographic. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that maybe 30 years ago, the only face of really addiction, other than probably veterans from Vietnam using heroin, was really just old alcoholic men.
Yeah.
And even Betty Ford here in this, we're celebrating women this week. So, But, Betty Ford was really one of the first people that came out and showed that women could be alcoholics.
Yeah.
And because normally they were sent off to insane asylums. In fact, most alcoholics were for quite a long time, like Las Encinas out in Pasadena.
Actually, that's what I got locked up in there for a while.
Yeah, I mean, that place.
I was there too.
W.C. Fields got sober there like 8 times. And then he died there.
They gave me his
Marilyn Monroe
were you in
was
his
up there.
cabin. I was.
Oh no, I was in the kid lockdown unit with like 3
The psych
barred
unit?
wind. Yeah.
I was in W.C. Fields' cabin. Alone.
Yeah.
But the Betty Ford, the reason there's 4 bedrooms in a lot of rehabs is that she insisted on living in a 4-bedroom room,
Yeah, that people have roommates and not be
Yeah.
special and
Yeah.
whatever. Although you found out that wasn't quite true, right? Didn't you get like some special privileges at Betty Ford?
We don't need to get into that,
All
do
right.
we?
Well, you told me about
Well,
it.
for 40 grand a month, I better. Cleaning toilets was not a special privilege, but
Wow.
I did get a room.
See, clean doesn't cost 40 grand a month, and we don't make you clean a toilet. So, but then
The
whatever.
clean treatment centers are great. And by the way, the number is 888-601-6040. How much of this, your past is not real and it's a memory, but how much, besides coming on radio shows like this, how much does this come up a lot, or can you transform it and turn it quickly to helping people rather than talk about what you did?
It's funny. Like I'm not the kind of. I'm very much attraction rather than promotion. I've never been the person to like roll up to someone and be like, "Hey, you need to do this. You should talk." I'm like, it's funny. Like I get. A lot of people know I don't drink. A lot of people know I don't do drugs and why and what I and some people are aware of what I did to stop. And, people kind of organically will come, I get phone calls every now and then from people here and there. But it's funny, like thinking about just walking in here, I had a very strange incident at a meeting about 2 years ago. We were talking about, the tradition of anonymity. That was the subject of this meeting. And this guy had no idea that I was in the meeting and goes on this, like, just blistering tirade about how much he hates me because I am vocal about being in recovery, and like started saying all this stuff that wasn't even true. Like that he said that I was, saying all this stuff on, publicly, and how dare I, and all this stuff. And like, he had no idea I was there. And it was a small meeting, and it was around Christmas. My hair was long. I had a big old beard. I was just kind of like, whatever, looking a little scruffy. And it was like, it was one of those really kind of crazy, surreal moments.
Well, what's funny is that
people
the
have to get over that
The story
because-
you just said before that is what it's about: attraction, not promotion,
Yeah.
right? And that's what that whole idea speaks to.
Exactly.
Is that you're not actually like dogmatically out there promoting AA. Instead, you're letting people be attracted to it naturally. So, and the main reason that is, I think, is a construct is because people that are coming into sobriety generally are paranoid about any advice or belief.
I think that too, and also people don't. You can't be like the guy standing out in front of everyone being, "Look, it works for me," and then have it fail. Then all of a sudden, everyone's
Right.
like, "Well, it didn't work for that asshole."
Well, that's okay. That's all right. We can
That's all right. That's a donkey, man.
It's a donkey.
No,
yeah.
but I mean, somebody said those 2 letters. Somebody said to me, I was on TV this week, and they said, "You're not a spokesman for those 2 letters." Okay.
Yeah.
And she wrote them out, and I said, "But suddenly you are." I mean, you just mentioned them. But that whole thing's a whole another topic. So I had somebody in a small meeting too say, "Hey, it's my first meeting, and there's Pat O'Brien sitting here." I'm like, "What?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?" But the celebrity part, I'm not a celebrity, but you are, and that there's a double-edged sword to that. And the good part of the sword for you is that, like, I for one was surprised that you were able to get sober. To be honest with you, I just thought this is not going to work, but it has.
Yeah, I
don't mean to.
No, it's true. If I hadn't got sober when I was at the age I was, I don't think I would have necessarily got sober and stayed sober. I don't know. I think there was a lot of planets aligned correctly in that moment, and like I said, a huge part of the reason why I stuck around was the fellowship component. My best friends to this day, guys I met in treatment, and it's because of that. At the times when I was like I couldn't rely on the friends, I would rely on the work. And when I couldn't rely on the work, I would rely on the service. And it was the whole, I really tried to, utilize what was given to me and apply it, and it worked.
Andrew, in your 20 years of addiction help work, good work, do you find that it's a different game now with the younger people coming in? That because I think a lot of them say, I'm going to miss out.
I don't think the games necessarily change. The types of addiction that we're seeing are different in that it's happening quicker. So it used to be people would smoke pot and drink alcohol, and maybe they, if they didn't have a really strong predisposition to being alcoholic, and you can see some of those people, the first drink, they're just off to the races, their eyes glass over, and they become somebody completely different right after the first drink. But most people actually have transitional alcohol abuse. We see that in college with binge drinking, and then most people age out of it. But there's a lot of people that don't. What's happened now, though, is that we're seeing a lot of poly drug abuse, which means that people are using alcohol and some other drug or series of drugs or a multitude of drugs. By the way, 51% of all overdoses are when people are using more than one substance. Yeah. So that's why it's even more dangerous. So we're seeing people have larger crises. The time it takes for them to go from abuse to addicted is much shorter now than it used to be. And so we're seeing a lot younger population. The other thing that we're seeing is that we're seeing a lot of older people, because 65-year-old grandma is drinking still, and she's not going to die in 5 years. So, she's going to be around for 15 years. We better get her some help. Yeah. And so we're seeing all sorts of brain diseases like TIAs, which are like little mini strokes in the brain. We're seeing all this stuff happening because the lifespan is extending. So we're seeing a whole new set of types of chronic diseases and illnesses related some to substance abuse and alcoholism, some not, but just to age. But it's a fascinating thing how our demographic is changing for treatment.
And one of the things that's changed in treatment too is inpatient and outpatient. And at the KLEAN Center, we have those outpatients. So if you're young and in school, you can actually still get treated and don't have to be as
and one of the
Jack
things
and I
that
said,
we're just starting up. I mean, I've been working on this for now 2 years, but I think in about a month I'm going to have the program up and running, and we're doing a harm reduction track in the evenings where we're actually allowing people that are actively using to still come in and get counseling, which is unheard of really in the treatment industry. But we're allowing to come in and say, okay, if you have a problems with drug or alcohol, let's sit down and talk about it. And then we come up with a contract about, what would be appropriate usage and appropriate behavior. And if they break that contract, then they have to go to inpatient residential care. But if they don't, then we look at how to moderate their usage and then hopefully, convert them over to a healthy lifestyle or sometimes abstinence.
You guys kind of creating like a 3-ring.
There's multiple tiers. Yeah. So, you can go to an abstinence program, full-time IOP.
It's structure.
We're providing, but we're also providing a funnel sort of how to catch everybody. And what we're finding also is we're finding a lot of psychiatric illnesses like depression, anxiety, and people that are self-medicating, and they've just started doing it. Yeah. So I think in a lot of ways we're preventing addiction from taking hold by getting better diagnosis on a psychiatric standpoint early on.
We are KLEAN Radio, KLEANradio.com, growing, going to be all over the East Coast pretty soon, and about to be a TV show at some point, which will be great, and to change our wardrobe possibly, but that's, maybe not.
What's wrong with Marilyn Manson?
Facebook.com/KLEAN Radio, at KLEAN Radio on Twitter. I'm at POB Pat O'Brien because some moron has my name. Well, he's not a moron, is he? It's his name. I'm POB Pat O'Brien, and you're at KLEAN CEO. And what's your tweet?
I'm just Jack Osbourne.
You lucky duck.
I know. I had to fight for that.
You did?
There was a guy who had it, and then you have to submit a petition, and it was inactive. He just swooped it.
There's about 9 Facebook pages with my picture on it.
Get him shut down.
I had 3 or 4 for a little while. I guess they figured there was enough traffic. They all went away.
Jack Osbourne's our guest and a great one. And I want to touch on the MS thing a little bit before we go too. But I want to get your how crazy was the whole Osbourne thing? I mean, I contributed to it because I ran it every night, and
it was one of those things where it wasn't.
It was crazy.
It was crazy, but I couldn't really compare it now. Like in hindsight, you could look back and go, "Wow, that was nuts." But when you're just living it and you're there, it's like this is just what we're doing, and there was no one had really done it before, so there was no format to it. There was no, this is what you do, this is how you follow it, this is when you're in it, this is here's the rule book. There was none of that.
I remember sitting in the kitchen talking to your dad or your mom during, we were shooting, and you came down for breakfast in your pajama bottoms or something, just opened the refrigerator. Yeah. Anybody want any orange juice? I mean, it was so natural. Not like the Kardashians.
They come down with full hair and makeup.
And mostly, and I like those people, but mostly scripted. What do you say to young people now? And I guess we can no longer just say young people, but let's go with young people. What do you say to people? What I want you to say is there is a choice, and you can have fun. You don't have to go out and do Molly every night.
Yeah, I mean, I think giving advice is something that I tend to stay away from. In conversations that I've had with people, my whole thing comes down to, why not just try some, try controlled drinking, try controlled recreational drug use if there is such a thing. Like you were saying, Andrew, with that plan.
Yep.
A lot of people that come, young people that have said to me, I'm like, cool, what is your interpretation of controlled use? And then if you think that's fair and you share that with someone, they say, yeah, that's kind of normal, try and stick to that plan. And if you can't, maybe you should reevaluate it.
What's the cliff, Andrew? When do you realize that you're done?
I mean, unfortunately, we see often people overdose at a very young age, and they don't expect to overdose, obviously. I mean, most people that overdose don't really want to overdose. They might be reckless. One of the problems that we see is that people just, you're not generally dealing with drugs that have a controlled dose. So to recreationally take something that doesn't have a controlled dose is really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that heroin has sort of become the new recreational drug in some ways, because oxycodone's pretty much dried up on the streets and other opiates aren't as pleasing, I guess. But anyway, and it's cheap. You get it really cheap and you can smoke it. But what we're seeing is that we're seeing huge numbers of heroin overdoses, which we hadn't seen for a long time. I mean, heroin was really out for a good 30 years.
Yeah.
And that was after it had come back after Vietnam. So there was like a Vietnam generation, then there was this 89 to 91 generation, and it skipped period. And then just in the last couple of years, it's just taken off again. And we're just seeing, the Midwest, it's the highest rate of death is from drug overdoses from opiates.
Yep.
And then meth, too, because it's cheap, right?
Yeah. And meth is often added. Different people, and I've talked about this on the show before, but different people tend to be attracted to different kinds of drugs based on what psychiatric illnesses they might already be having, what their body chemistry is, and what their personality type is. And so you can generally see that people that, say, for example, have a thought disorder and are schizophrenic or even have a mood disorder are probably going to go for a stimulant like cocaine or methamphetamine. But people that are depressive or whatever are actually more likely to go for a depressive like alcohol, and that offsets the depression.
Yeah. And the problem is, too, Jack, that your dad and I, when we were growing up, when we were younger, we could take it. Somebody handed us something, we'd take it. That's just the way it operated in the 60s and 70s. We just felt no
Why
problem.
Not? Yeah.
I mean, I remember people handing me stuff. I had no idea what it was, and I took it. But now, the warnings should be very high.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's all these designer drugs coming out now, which are basically everything under the kitchen sink, and then something crazy from the Middle East. I remember my
Let's not pick on the Middle East.
I don't know, some like spice. What's spice?
Exactly.
It changes every 3 months.
Right. I remember a teenager at the treatment center that I went to. I remained very close and did a lot of volunteering for them. He was in there because he had one of those frogs that if you lick, it elicits a hallucinogenic response.
Right.
And he literally was at home licking his pet frog to get high. I mean, like,
that actually doesn't work.
Wait a minute.
You actually have to do something for the stuff on the back of the frog.
I mean, apparently this kid was just, he was in treatment for it, but he had to relinquish his frog.
Relinquish his frog. That might have been.
Are you saying frog or fraud?
Frog.
No, like a commercial. By the way, if you have a frog problem or any problem, 888-601-6040. What's your passion now, Jack? What do you want to do
frogs,
with your life?
Obviously, right?
Frogs. I'm a big
that
into my frog pond.
What's your passion
No,
list?
I still host the odd thing here and there, and I have a production company, so we're producing all sorts of TV shows.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just working, doing the MS kind of awareness stuff, and have my family and expecting another baby. So
good for you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, another one. Yeah, 2.
I have a photographic memory, and I read this last week. 8 pounds 6 ounces. Was that?
That was Pearl. Yeah. Wow.
You believe that?
Wow.
Because I worked in sports, and I don't have it in front of me. I swear to
Right.
God.
No, I don't
but I
know.
worked in sports, and stats always stuck with me.
Right.
But the 8 pounds 6 ounces.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
You
isn't
should
it?
work. You could always work as a obstetrician or a nurse. A
sportscaster.
You could work as a nurse in a nursery.
Jack, thanks so much.
No
for
more
coming
babies
in.
would get mixed up.
Congratulations on the new baby.
Thank you very much.
And on everything. You look great.
Thank you,
and,
Pat. So do you.
Yeah, thank you. And
Dashing
I love you.
man.
Dashing.
And I'm just hanging out here.
Well, we think you look great.
I think you're pretty cool, Andrew.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like your
Joe.
vibes.
And
Listen, if I was getting loaded, I totally would come to your treatment center.
There you go.
I dig your vibes.
There we
Let's
go.
do that again. It's called cleantreatment.com if you ever have a problem. Cleantreatmentcenters.com. Hey, Jack, thanks a lot. I'll see you around. I
Absolutely,
see you
yeah.
guys all the time. Appreciate it. Oh, and it's you don't. What's the website?
You don't know Jack about ms.com.
You don't know Jack about ms.com. Jack suffers. Do you suffer still?
Technically, I mean, not daily. But
Jack has MS.
I have MS.
So if you go to his website, we'll put it on
Among
our website.
other disorders.
And we'll take for well. We don't have enough time for mine, yours, and Andrew's. Thanks, Jack. Thanks
you.
a lot.
Thanks,
I love
Jack.
you.
Appreciate it.
Andrew, good show today. I think
Yeah, thanks, man.
one of the things that comes up today anyway. And thanks for Jack and for Dana Perry's information. I mean, I think this is the thing that people really need to have is information about stuff that's killing them.
Yeah, and it's out there, and the reality is that as difficult as it may be to call, like we heard about from the suicide prevention line, people that are doing drugs and are addicted are often feeling really lonely, isolated, and suicidal as well. And it's the same kind of problem. Give a call. It doesn't hurt to call. Worst thing is you might have to call again. So, anybody out there needs help, give them a call.
Jack said that it's the fraternity, it's the people. It's you'll find out you're not alone. And that's the biggest thing. I'm Pat O'Brien. He's Andrew Spanswick. We're happy to be with you. We'll be back next week. Remember, the universe always delivers. It's pretty good at it, too. See you next week.
Are you or someone you care about addicted to drugs or alcohol? Addiction ruins lives and destroys families. Bring an end to the pain and suffering by calling KLEAN Treatment Centers. KLEAN has helped people from around the world break free by not only treating the addiction, but the underlying causes and providing vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean with no gimmicks and no false promises. If you need immediate assistance or just have questions, call KLEAN Treatment Centers for guidance. A much better life awaits.